Hey everybody, welcome to the Doctors of Running Roundtable. Man, David is blurry. There we
That's what I was
go.
thinking. I was like,
Here he
of
is.
course, the second we start recording, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna go blurry.
That's fine.
yeah.
So today's a little bit different. We're not doing a full roundtable about really a topic in particular. Today's story time. You guys can tell us who's the best storyteller. But before we jump into that, this episode is not sponsored by Joanne Fabrics. We went over to Joanne's to get some fleece blankets. We're making a tie blanket for Ray Ray. We got these little trucks, beep, beep right there, and a little orange. Should be fun. We're working on the tie blanket right now. Nice for these Wisconsin winters. Anyway.
I want a soundbite. I want that soundbite of Nathan going beep, beep.
Beep, beep. No, but today's story time. We are all going to share our favorite race memory and our favorite race story. And they might all look different, but we haven't told each other what these stories are, so we're all excited to hear. We're going to start off with Matt. We're going to have him kick off. So why don't you tell us your favorite ever of all time race story?
So I think my favorite one would have to be the LA Marathon. So I had not planned on running LA. This was toward the end of fellowship. I was busy pacing my fiance Regina, who was getting ready for the Olympic trials down the way and just training and preparing and trying to improve. She had a new coach at the time, so there's a lot of very high mileage. And, on top of working full time in fellowship, I was probably running 100 plus miles a week, just pacing her, running low 6-minute pace for these long tempos. And yeah, just wasn't focusing on my own training. And of course, on one of those nights where I'm like exhausted because I've been working too much, I'm complaining, going, "Oh, I'm getting slower, right? I'm working so hard, blah, blah." And she's like, "All right, forget it." So she signed me up for the elite field in LA, which is like, I had really no business being there, but she got me in. And kudos to the race director.
What year was this?
This was 2019. Yeah, it was early 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not too long
Yep.
ago. So I'm standing and like it's not really hitting me. So I do a couple like decent workouts, like 3x5K that went really well, and I was averaging like 5:30, 5:40 for the reps. I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. Because I'd pace marathons. I'd never run a marathon, like raced it. So
wow.
Get to the elite area at Dodger Stadium and sitting there with all these canyon runners. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing here? Luis Barrio was there. There was a bunch of elite athletes. I'm just going, why, how am I here? And so the gun goes off and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I hang on to the back of the pack and I actually did decent, right? For not doing any like a marathon buildup or anything and just pacing Regina. I ran a 2:32 and just held on for dear life. Didn't get passed by anybody, just hung on, passed a couple Kenyans and Ethiopians that went out too hard. And I just remember it was okay the first half marathon. I think I went through in like 1:13, 1:14. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm hurting. And the rest was just a death march holding on to low 6-minute pace. People screaming at me. I couldn't recognize who they were. Going down Santa Monica Boulevard, just trying to finish. And yeah, came through the finish line somehow. It was 2:32:44, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, like I'm in so much pain. Why did I do this? Can't even walk. And then Kurt from Stockbridge from Skechers comes up and he's like, "Matt, is that you?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't talk right now. And yeah, it was a very surreal and very cool experience to be able to do that. Although I would like to be better prepared, but as with most things in my life, I show up at the last minute, sometimes not on my own accord. So that's probably one of my favorite ones, just hanging on for dear life and being in a position I shouldn't have been. And it was quite the experience.
Wow.
So
do you remember what shoes you wore, just for the people?
I was actually wearing prototype Skechers Speed Elites at the time. They had not been released.
Cool.
Hence why Kurt was so excited.
Yeah. David, what's your story?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't run a marathon yet, so it's kind of always funny listening to people's like first marathon story. I'm like just trying to prepare for everything to go wrong.
You will.
But for me, it's a very similar story. So I think you guys remember, like, was it 2 Novembers ago when it was November 2019, I think, when I went 108 and a half.
Yeah.
And then I took a few weeks off. And that was like late November, I think. And so like I started running again, like mid to late December. And then like, I was like, oh crap, like USA cross country is coming and it's in SoCal. And I can hop in. And I was like, well, looks like we're hopping in USA's. So like, I remember like taking a screenshot of the entries and like Anthony Rotich is above me. And I'm like, this is going to be fun. All right. So like hopped into the race and I'm like, main goal is don't get last and don't get lapped. Those are like my main goals. And it's kind of similar to Klein. Took it out, stayed consistent. I don't think I got passed by anyone. And I think I passed a good amount of people through the field. And the course was horrible. Like everyone ran at least 2 minutes slower than what they normally would run for 10K cross. And it was just like a slogfest. And it was, but it was one of those races where I finished. I looked at the time. I'm like, dang, did I really run that slow? And like, but like I beat some people. I looked back on the results. Like there were guys that were sub 220 marathoners that I beat. And I mean, it's like you're starting on the starting line with Connor McMillan next to you and Anthony Rotich and like Emmanuel Bohr and like these guys that are just so fast. And like, man, I just remember it was just a lot of fun. And I just remember like thinking back on it and being like, was that the best that I could have done on that day? And that's one of the few races that I can genuinely say yes. I remember like my chest pounding, everything hurting. Like I felt like I couldn't even move. And like you're just driving as hard as you possibly can to make sure the guy that's behind you doesn't pass you or the guy in front of you, you get. And it was just like, just a really good feeling coming across that line. And I mean, for me, you guys know, I haven't been racing really. I mean, I just came back to competitive running not that long ago. So for me to go run in that kind of a caliber of a race and to have my dad there watching as well was like kind of cool. So to come across the line and just, yeah, it was just fun. Really good time. So yeah,
That's awesome.
That's probably mine.
Your favorite? I have 3 that are in my head. I obviously can't break code here, and I'm just gonna pick one.
We saved the best for last, by the way. No pressure.
Yeah, best in quotes, right?
Best story.
I'm gonna go with I was late to the running scene. I didn't start running until college casually, like not on like any team or anything. I ran my first race ever was a 5-mile race in my hometown in Sheboygan along the lake. You know, I felt awesome because there was this guy named Bubba that he was like 50 something, but he ran everywhere. And I beat him in that race. And I felt like awesome because I beat like some 55-year-old person and I was like 19 at the time. But no, I probably ran like 8:30s or something for it. Doesn't really matter. Point is that my favorite race ever was this. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was a 5K in Madison. It was when I was a college student at UW. And we finally convinced one of my friends, Corey Blada, to run the 5K with us. And his goal was to break 25 minutes. And so we decided we would run with him. And so we were out on this 5K. It was me, a guy named Matt Flesh, and then Corey. And Matt and I could probably run like our fastest was like a 21 something. So it's not like we were that much faster than breaking 25, but he wanted to break 25. And we literally I literally was running behind him with my hands on his shoulder blades, like pushing him because he wanted to stop. And I like pushed him forward to keep moving. And he broke the 25 minutes and then crossed the finish line and promptly threw up. So it was like amazing. And then he ate a banana a little bit later and threw up again. But what I loved about that race was just like what running is for me is the community of it. And so like I had my good friend Matt Flesh and then bring along Corey like on the ride. My other race that I was going to talk about was Crazy Legs, and it was Corey's first ever run. And Matt and I finished before he did, and then he came in and just was bawling because of the experience. He's like, I got to run because that race is like 20-some thousand people. So like, he's like running with 20-some thousand people was so powerful. And so he like couldn't even talk. He was crying so much because of how powerful it was to run in community with people. So those are my 2 favorites.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, community is such a big part of the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I broke the rules. I told too many,
Worth
but
it.
I think it tells us what I love most about running is that stuff. So
Yeah, it's the same here. I mean, I love to compete and I love to run fast and really test myself. But I mean, you guys know, like I party after every race probably. And it's like just get everyone together, have a good time, like everyone that was in it, regardless of how anyone did. And it's like no matter what, you're going to celebrate your effort and being out there with other people. So
yeah.
I think that's
awesome.
a shout out to Jameis and Michael on this and talking about, often people talk about running stories and they can be very competitive and a little bit scary to the general population. But what we should really be focusing on is what Nathan talked about, where we really want to bring people together. And oftentimes some parts of the running community can be a little scary for people who are starting a little later in the game or may not feel as confident about speed. And it's really not about speed. At the end of the day, it's really about that community aspect and really being able to move and celebrating movement. Right? We have these incredible bodies that do all this wide range of things between each person. And I think we should really celebrate that. And I hope that the variety of experiences that we bring also emulates the variety of people and runners out there, and that everybody is a runner. I often hear people like, oh, I'm a jogger or I'm a runner. It's whatever you want to call yourself. At the end of the day, by partaking in this and being part of this, you are part of a bigger community. It's a great community, and it needs, and the more, and I highly suggest look at our talk with Jamie on this subject and a lot of the stuff he talks about too on his wonderful YouTube. It's just, again, it's bringing that community together. Don't scare people off with speed. It's, bring people together through shared experiences, regardless of speed.
Yeah.
It's a shared thing. And that's what's really awesome. And those stories are what really make running special. And yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hearing these stories
totally.
too is what's special.
Also, because we have to, David, you never said what shoes you ran that cross race in, I don't think.
I think I was the only person at the USA Championships wearing a pair of Skechers. I was in the Skechers XCR.
You were in the Skechers too. Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. I was just wearing Tarokos, Just
my shoe, because I forgot to say it too, for all of these races that I talked about, is actually the original 890 from New Balance. I think at that time they called it the Battley or something bad. Sorry if that loses all my credit.
No, it was named after like Andy Battley or whatever. I'm probably saying that wrong.
Yeah,
it was named after something like the
Battley.
890.
That's why I said name.
Yeah,
it was the original, and it was the Battley or Badele. Badele. No, but that was what I ran those. They were gray and like neon yellow or something. But anywho, if you guys have your stories, we love to hear stories. You can share them below, or I don't know, maybe you guys can think of a better way to tell more stories of your favorite race, kind of what makes running special to you guys. Also, we had an idea thrown to us by one of my friends. Let's get your feedback on it. It's called the trash can test or the garbage can test, where basically he said that we should take all the shoes that we have and throw them in the garbage can and then rate the level of regret that we have throwing that pair of shoes in the garbage, which will tell us how much we like it. So if you guys think that's a good idea, let us know. I don't know.
I feel like that we should. It's like almost like Jamie, how he threw a shoe off the water or at the bridge. We should do a
bridge
through the trash can.
Yeah,
How much regret do I have?
That's,
Which some of them are like,
That's what
I
I
can't
said,
do this.
but-
And other ones are like, yeah, I'm throwing both of them in.
that's why it might be a good test.
That's a
Like,
great
do you
test.
leave them in there?
Should
But
we
I
film that?
wouldn't leave them in there. I like
Yeah.
to donate
Always
the
donate them.
used
Don't
shoes
just throw them away.
to kids who
I
need
was
them.
gonna say,
Yeah, I'm not
don't
gonna
trash
throw
them.
them away.
Don't
Yeah.
actually do it. But
Okay,
Should
we got to end this.
All right, fine.
But you guys, this was great. It was good to hear your stories. Looking forward to hearing other people's too. Have a good night.